Well, thank you for staying. Kathy just told me there are refreshments that you're welcome to have. You would have to go to the back, I guess, to grab them. There's water and those energy bars or something like that. It's not going to be that long, so maybe you don't need all that kind of stuff, but you're welcome to it. And my job is just to block the picture here. And I'm doing a pretty good job of that. So thank you for being here. You're probably wondering why we invited you. We invited you because you've been good to the parish over the years. And so it's, we have to go to the people who have been good to the parish over the years first. We'll go to the other folks next, but the people who have been very generous over the years, we always ask them first and say, can you do something? This is an important campaign. What can you do? So that's in essence what we're doing today. I want to introduce a couple people. Deacon Cameron flew the coop. Right after I shouldn't call him Deacon Cameron anymore, Father Cameron, as soon as he was ordained, he and a bunch of his friends went to New England. So he will be back tomorrow. Such does us no good for this. So Father Latkovich of the seminary conned Max here, who is going to be an intern. So if you remember when Matt Jordan was here and doing all the things that Matt did, this young man is going to be doing that. Where at, Max? St. Patrick's West Park. West Park, well, that'd be an interesting. I was assigned at West Park. Okay, yeah, I was thinking of the other St. Pat's. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking of Bridge. I was once assigned to St. Stephen's on West 54th between Bridge and Lorraine. I was thinking, but that's a different one. St. Pat's is a little further out. But it's good for a young man from Kirtland to learn that there is a West Side. I haven't admitted it, but I went there last week only because Cameron was ordained and his first Mass was on the West Side. But so welcome to all of you. And the other person that's here is going to answer some questions. We're honored to have Mr. Patrick Grace. And Patrick is in charge of the Catholic Community Foundation. Is that the right term? Close enough? Or anyhow, he's over a lot of things downtown. A lot of things. So anyhow, he's filling in for the two gals that usually help us with the campaign. So anyhow, so that's what it is. And I think the next thing, I'm going to turn off the lights so you can actually see this thing, and you'll see the campaign thing first, and then I'll talk a little bit after that. So we'll kill the lights.
I remember my first time in the seminary, I really was wondering, what will this be like? What will the seminarians be like? Will I be accepted? Will this be a place where I'm going to flourish? All my fears were swept aside when I started studying with other people who had a similar call. And coming to this seminary, I reflected on the 6 great years I had while I was studying for the priesthood. These are going to be the future ordained leaders of our parish communities. So human formation, spiritual formation, pastoral formation, academic formation, they're all critical to provide the best ordained leaders we can provide for our church in the future. This campaign helps those who are preparing for the priesthood, helps those who are recently ordained, as some of them come with great debt from their prior educational world, and helps those who so faithfully walked with us and have served you. This campaign also helps our parishes, which have been challenged by the impact of the global pandemic, by providing financial resources for pressing local needs.
"11 years ago, the family's journey began bringing our son Patrick to seminary as he discerned becoming a priest. As a parent, we wanted the best for Patrick, who's now a priest in the Cleveland Diocese. With the relationships I developed over the years with faculty and staff members, we often talked about how we can make this great place better.
The buildings of our seminary are over 70 years old. They have one pump on campus that supplies heat. There's no air conditioning. One plug, imagine having one plug in your room for your alarm clock, computer, for music. Our seminary is long overdue to be updated.
For these men, the seminary is their home. And I look at the fact that I lived there for 9 years, that was home for me.
The physical space needs to inspire men to say, this is a place of formation, and it's an investment that I see that the seminary is making in me, and they're taking my formation seriously.
And it's saying, we value you enough to make sure that the environment in which you're being formed helps with your education, helps with your spirituality, and helps with your humanity.
The living area of our seminary will be updated, creating a room that is soundproof, creating a space that is 40% larger for our college seminary and 60% larger for our theologians. We're also looking to add a lounge area that will allow them to socialize together, watch TV. There will also be places for group study and prayer. Besides the living space, we need to renovate Resurrection Chapel. This will be a place where many of them will find the clarity of their vocation. This will be the place where many of them will continue to find courage to serve as a diocesan or religious priest. The people of this diocese have supported our seminary in its many transitions. We look forward to this renovation project because this is our hope for the future. This will allow this structure to continue to serve the diocese, hopefully for 70 years and beyond.
I think we absolutely have a responsibility to our priests. They lay down their lives for us. They're there every moment of our lives for us. They're there throughout the good times, and they're there not just to give us the sacraments, but to share in that celebration for us. They're part of it. They're like family. And they're there when the bad times come too, all the tough decisions, and helping us with that burden and sharing that loss with us. If we have older people in our own families that retire, we step up to help them because they're family. Our priests are family too. They've always been there for us, and now we need to be there for them. Most graduates can reasonably expect to go into a good paying job after they leave college, and they can reasonably expect that they're going to get promotions and pay raises on a regular basis. None of that is true for the seminarians. And I think the average debt for most seminarians is over $40,000. On a priest's salary, that's going to be very tough to pay off.
When I entered seminary out of high school, I went into Borromeo, and at Borromeo we're educated at John Carroll. And also too, just part of that is there's a cost. I was able to get scholarships, but there was still some sense that I had to pick up loans, and I was responsible for paying them back.
We're not seeing as many people in church as we would like to, and certainly the pandemic has been the cause of that. And there are some areas in the diocese that are really, really hurting to kind of keep the revenues up. And the other element of the campaign, and probably the beauty of it, is that it is designed to bring money back to the parishes to help through these difficult days, and hopefully shore up some things that have been lost through these last several months.
After going through my years of formation here, I can appreciate what this building has done, and they've been so instrumental in my own formation. but then going out to the people of God, being with the people of God, being a shepherd for them, being a man that they can call father. That's what I'm looking forward to the most.
We're very fortunate that we have our seminaries right here in this diocese, and we train our young men to become priests and to then serve us in our diocese.
These men, in each of their own way, radiate the heart of a shepherd. What does that mean? To be compassionate like Jesus Christ, to be welcoming, to be forgiving, to offer God's love abundantly to everyone we meet.
By giving to the Heart of a Shepherd capital campaign, you are helping our seminarians today. But more than that, you're helping all those who will be ordained in the future. You're also helping our parishes where these men will serve as leaders. You're providing a future for our church, our parishes for decades to come.
And now, so that you can meet an actual seminarian, Max, you want to say something about yourself and do what you're going to do?
All right, let's try that again. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay. Thank you, Father, and thank you, Patrick, for having me here. Good afternoon to all of you. My name is Max Georgie. I'm happy to be here with you this afternoon to give a little bit of a testimony about life in the seminary building. So it's not just the video telling you things. You actually have a real seminary in here, like Father said. So hopefully I can provide some testimony to what was said in the video. I'm a member of Divine Word Parish, just down 306, also featured in the video there. I graduated from Mentor High School in 2015. I'm now 25 years old, and I'm currently heading into my third year at St. Mary's, as Father said. And I think I made a mistake. I will be at St. Patrick's on Bridge. I thought it was the same. I think I made a mistake there. So I'll be there next year instead of going back to the seminary building. And I do love St. Stephen's, so I hope to visit there here and there. In short, my experience at the seminary has been that of encountering Christ, and in doing so, I get to know his love for me, and I get to know the church better, and I also get to know myself better. This happens when we conform ourselves to Christ in the 4 pillars of formation that are spiritual, human, intellectual, and pastoral. So growing in the 4 pillars is an integrative process. You know, you kind of take one at a time, then it all comes together, especially when you're doing pastoral things, because you got to have your head knowledge, you got to have your heart knowledge, you got to have spiritual encounters with Christ. So the 4 pillars are an integrative process that help us to be fully human by helping every part of our humanity. Our formation is certainly not tethered to a building. It's not completely dependent on the building, but the reality is that nearly all of it takes place in the seminary building. So the state of the building needs to be taken into consideration, and it is not in good shape. So I look forward to kind of giving you an image of what the building's like. Obviously, I'll just be speaking about the renovation part of the campaign. So before I continue, I want to start by saying that we are thankful for what we have. I'm glad that I have walls, that I have a bedroom, that I have a place to pray, that I have a place to put my stuff. All the past 6 years, I've thought about that. I'm like, wow, I'm grateful I have this place, but it is not in good condition. It could use some updating. It's not in conformity with today's standards. And the ways that the building doesn't conform to standards today are not simply luxury concerns. I can't make that clear enough. It's not about building the Taj Mahal here. There will be some luxury that will be added, yes, as you saw in some of those images, but ultimately it's about making the seminary building a safer, brighter, and healthier place to live. Right now the building is not the safest, it's not very bright, and it has health effects on some guys and even on me, and it's had an impact on our formation because of that. And while there are other formation groups that are at the seminary building, there's the lay ecclesial ministry formation, there's the permanent diaconate formation, there's Borromeo College Seminary, and there's St. Mary Graduate School, which I'm in. The seminarians, Borromeo and St. Mary's, we live in the building, so we're most impacted by the state of the building rather than the other groups. So, as I said, the building is not the safest place to live. There's rust in the showers. I'm also not sure what the pipes are made of. My sink has been leaking for years in the room that I just stayed in last semester, and there's like a green thing. I don't know if that's from pipes or just from water, but it just makes me question what's in our pipes if the building's about 70 years old, like Father Lakovich said in the video. There's breakable wood doors to the bedrooms. So the bedroom doors are obviously, rectangular, and they also have a little square board in them. And there's funny stories about how those square boards have been punched out. And the seminary is also, in a place that's changing with demographics. So there's people that kind of wander in sometimes. And there are security doors and stuff, but here and there people wander in, and you wonder what they might try to do if they get past the security doors, which has happened before. They're very easy to punch out doors, and somebody can just walk right into our room. The security doors are also not in the greatest areas. That'll be one of the updates with the renovations. They're going to move security doors so we have a greater living space. The minimal outlets in rooms obviously causes hazards when a lot of things are plugged into one plug. Not only is there a tripping hazard with all the wires in our rooms, but there could be a fire hazard with everything being plugged into one plug. So the building is not bright. This is so because the hallway lights are usually off, and you might say, well, why are you keeping them off? Well, when we turn them on, it feels incredibly institutional, almost like a hospital, because the walls are solid concrete walls and they're white. So when we do flip the lights on, it really doesn't help anything. So the lights are usually off, and it's just dark, and it's dank. It can be smelly in there, and it causes seasonal depression in some guys. I've heard it too. It's not just something I'm making up. People have had seasonal depression because it's so dark in the seminary. Some other things. The privacy in the building is compromised because of the concrete walls and the thin wood doors. So sound that's like a sound funnel. It just bounces down the concrete hallways, goes right through the doors. If I'm trying to pray or trying to study intensely in my room, I can hear everything that's going on. I know that'll be fixed in the renovations, which I'm grateful for. And also there was a renovation in the 60s in which some rooms were expanded and added, but they were spliced into 2 rooms by a simple wood wall. And that wood wall, we can hear people fart through the wood wall, okay? It's not pleasant. You can hear everything. Somebody even said they can hear my prayers one time. I was like, okay, well, that's between me and God and my spiritual director. That's not for everybody else to be hearing. So there's a privacy issue there. The rooms are also pretty small. They will increase in size, and I just invite you to remember that we are studying to be diocesan priests. We're not studying to be monks that have no possessions. So we need possessions to serve the people of the parish as well. So it's important for us to have a little bit of a bigger space to keep our stuff in. The electricity is bad. We all had to move to the west side last semester because the renovation started, and we weren't allowed to bring in some of our appliances because it would blow a circuit. So we had to give up some of the little refrigerators we had, coffee makers, microwaves. Some of the faculty had to give up microwaves. The rugs are about 25 years or older. They have absorbed a lot of dirt and debris. I know when COVID first started, there were a lot of people theorizing about where it came from. I like to say COVID came from the seminary rugs. They're pretty bad. They create a smell. Again, you never know what some of the stains are that are in the rugs. Only the rugs in the hallway are steamed during the summer. The boiler is uncontrollable. So if we have a day that's like 49 to 55 degrees, and it's going to be 30 at night, well, we keep the boiler on. And during the day, that can be pretty hot, because if you have a sunny day where it's 55 degrees, it is pretty warm outside, and then the chapel and the rest of the building just stays hot the whole day, which is unpleasant. The boiler also dries out the air, so a lot of us bring in humidifiers, but then we have the 25-plus-year-old rugs that love humidifiers, and they create nice smells. I've had to turn my humidifier off because it's just so stinky in there, because you don't know what's in that rug and what the water is mixing with. Finally, there's no air conditioning. Now, I know some people might say, big deal, I grew up without air conditioning. I invite anybody who is thinking that to remember that we are living on the second floor, and we are living in a brick building. Living on the second floor in a brick building is not a good combination for not having air conditioning. The brick absorbs all the heat, so even if it does cool down a little bit at nighttime, it does not cool down inside. There was one day where Mark Johnson, I was watching, said that if you're inside a building, the heat index is probably 97 degrees if you don't have air conditioning. That was true. It was very hot in my room, and it stayed like that all through the night, even though I had my window fans on. So that creates a big problem, because the first 8 weeks of the school year, we can have a lot of 80, 90-degree days. Seems that summer has been shifting into September and October. And when we have those days, we don't sleep well. If we don't sleep well, we don't study well. And we also don't encounter the Lord very well in our prayers, because we're human, and our body needs to be in good shape so that we can be attuned for prayer. So there have been a lot of guys that have been sleep deprived the first 8 weeks of the year, including myself. I've had headaches. I've had a hard time studying. I've had a hard time praying. Some people would try to solve this by bringing mattresses down to classrooms into the chapel where it is air conditioned. And whether or not you agree with all the COVID precautions last year, we were not allowed to do that. We were asked to stay in our un-air-conditioned rooms and not go to any air-conditioned space. So, there's not more than one person without a mask on in a room. No matter what you think about that, we were stuck in our un-air-conditioned rooms, and I just saw the suffering of the community. And it was very hard. I felt like I was going to bed in an oven every night last year. So our formation depends on Christ, but it is definitely affected by the facilities we live in. So one last point I'd like to make, I was telling people I was going to go into the seminary, and of course I got a lot of support, and I appreciate that very much. So I'm getting a lot of support. People are saying, congratulations, thank you for studying to be a priest, thank you for considering it. And I go to the seminary, and I was like, woo, everybody's telling me, congratulations, we support you, and the building doesn't really look like they support me. The building doesn't look like they support the seminarians. It's very, like I said, it's very dark, it's very old, it smells. And I am actually embarrassed to show newcomers when they ask me to do tours for new guys and their families who are thinking about coming. I say, yeah, look at this room. It's dark and it's smelly. Look at this room. The wood's breaking. Look at this room. And so it's something, I think it says something about the people of the diocese too. So after further reflection, I think to myself about how the state of the building says something about what we think as a collective whole about the formation, like Father Eric said in there. So ultimately, the renovations are needed to make a safer, brighter, and healthier residency area, and that will help enhance our formation, keep us healthy, so that we can continue to serve you well, and it will hopefully show a very good image on the Diocese of Cleveland and what we think about our places of formation. Thank you.
Thanks, Max. I can echo those thoughts. It was old and dilapidated 45 years ago, so it hasn't gotten better in that time. And we weren't even allowed to have things like a humidifier. I mean, there really is one outlet in a room. That's it. So you can imagine, and it's wired like you would wire something in 1950. So you can't put much in. I'm going to answer questions, and I have to make the case for the parish too. But the other thing, the line I thought of while Max was speaking, Father Manning, who is just retiring, and so his line was, you know, the gospel passage that says, many are called, but few are chosen. He said his room was right above the garage, and he said, many are cold, but few are frozen. And one of the annoying things was the heat system, because it was out of control. You might have a day where it's, you know, really hot in your room, and it might be freezing the next day. You just didn't know what the heating system was going to do, and there didn't seem to be anybody that understood how to correct anything, because it's just an old system. So anyhow, enough on that. The campaign, though, has several elements. One, of course, that demands a lot of money is the seminary part of it. There's also a part in there for priest retirement, and that also interests me, you know, at my age. But it's to fund that so that it is completely, right now, the parish pays in for my retirement. For every priest you have, they pay $10,000 into a retirement fund every year. For many parishes, that is a horrible expense. So this will fund some of that so that that number will go down significantly. And especially that will help inner city parishes to be able to pay what they have to into the retirement fund. And then the other part, Cameron probably could speak to this, that part that was in there about the student loans. That is important, because if you get a job and you're a doctor, a lawyer, or Indian chief or something, you have an income that you can pay that. But if you're a young priest, you don't have the income that you can pay that off in any reasonable amount of time. It takes a long time. But that's part of the campaign. That's really 35% of it is for what we're speaking about on the video and what Max is speaking about. 65% of the campaign is going to stay right here. So every dollar you give is going to go for things that we need in the parish, specifically two things right now. The boilers that were put in the school were put in there in 1963. I was in high school in 1963. I was a junior. So the one is dead. The boiler is completely dead. The other one works, but just barely. And if you've tried to buy parts for something that's old, you can't always do that. So every year the insurance company comes out and inspects things, and they say, you really ought to do something with those boilers. You really ought to. Well, we bit the bullet, and as soon as school is out, which is Friday, those people will be in there tearing those boilers out. We already did the asbestos part of that. That was done during their break at Easter time. They came and abated all that so that they can start construction right away. They have to tear these big things out. If anybody wants to see them afterwards, I'll be happy to take you over there. But they stand about this high. And there's two big, huge things, almost as wide as the aisle, and probably 15 feet each one. They're huge things. It's an impressive place to be in, scary sometimes. But so that's the first thing we're doing, is using the money that the campaign will raise to replace those boilers. They'll be much smaller and they'll be much more efficient and all that kind of stuff. The other thing, in this building, there are 2 air conditioners that sit right behind the church, and that's what air conditions it. In both air conditioners, the lead compressor is dead. So right now we're operating on the second compressor in each one of those. It's a smaller unit, and on a day like this, it's tolerable. But for graduation the other night, it couldn't keep up. So we're replacing one unit, and then the second unit, I think right now the plan is not to replace it, but we'll just limp along with that secondary compressor that's in there. So that's going to take a lot of money. Now, with any of these campaigns, what I did this for Rooted in Faith too. I go to people who I know have donated a huge amount of money in the past, and I say to them, would you do something again? And somebody says to me, how can you do that? And I'm not the most, ambitious person in the world, like to go after and ask and things like that. That's not my style. But on the other hand, all I'm really doing is to say to them, will you share some of your gifts? These things came to you somehow. They're your gifts, but will you share some of it with the church? So I don't have qualms for asking somebody to do something for the church, because that's all I'm doing. And that's my whole life, is doing things for the church, so I don't feel bad about doing it. So what I'm going to ask you to do a little bit later is to do something too. But because I've been asking people, we have a goal of $413,000. That will give the diocese what it needs for our portion as a parish for these 3 projects that were mentioned. Our goal is $413,000. We've already, I don't know who that is. We've already raised $195,000. So we're almost halfway there. But we really need folks like you to come forward and say, yeah, I'll do something significant too. It's a 3-year campaign, so it's not like we're asking you to give us $1.98. We'd like a lot more than $1.98 because it's 3 years. We'd like the $1.98 for this year and for next and the next year. So keep in mind that it's a 3-year thing, 3-year pledge campaign. Can be paid in any old way that you want. Patrick can give us maybe details on that. But pretty much however anybody wants to do it. One person I asked for a lot of money, and they'll spread it out over 3 years. But they're doing $20,000 a year for 3 years. They're doing $60,000. We're not asking you for $60,000. But if you can do it, we'll take it. We'll take it. We're asking people to do what they think they can do. Be reasonable, but be, realizing it's going for a good cause. We really need this. So whatever you can do. We will repeat this kind of a session on Tuesday of not this coming week, but next week. We will repeat that, and there's another group of people who said they would come. There's also a group of people who are watching this online. So it's not just you folks, but there are others that are interested and will help. We've done this before with the building of this building. Who would have thunk that we could have built this building and paid it off by 2009. You know, I don't know if people remember that. It goes in the bulletin all the time that we have paid this building off. You know, it's not like we're still making payments on it or anything. We've raised over the years a lot of money here, and we're asking people to come forward too. Now you might say, well, why do we have to pay for these boilers and air conditioning when we have a little bit of money in the bank? We do have some money in the bank. But down the road, the building next door is 30 years old. That's the rectory, the house, and the office building. You know the rule of thumb on roofs? 20 to 30 years. We're at 30 years. It was built in 91. This building, which we all think is the new church, is 19 years old in August. You know, this has a huge roof, even bigger than that building. That's coming down the pike. So we have to be prudent about things so that we will have the money that we need as we go. So that's why we're raising money right now. That's why we're doing this along with the seminary thing. It's a good time to do it. And what we're counting on is the fact that you folks are very generous indeed. And we don't just pull that out of a hat. We know that from the past. You've done things in the past. And because you've done things in the past, we're counting on you now. So I don't know, Patrick, if you have any things you want to add or anything I missed. I'm forever doing that. Oh yeah, I should have said that.
No, I would just echo Father's word of gratitude for all of you for being here and for your continued support, not only of St. Anselm, but for the diocese as well. I would also just add one comment about other parishes. So you may have seen that Father Dave Woost, who's the pastor at Divine Word, they completed the campaign actually about 18 months ago. So other parishes throughout the diocese will be conducting this initiative, bringing it to their community, similar to you at St. Anselm over the months ahead. So this is happening throughout all of the 8 counties of the diocese, all 186 parishes, and it's going very well. We're off to a really great start. That thing called COVID, as we all know, came into the picture here, and we're also trying to use this, as others indicated, to really help our parishes in addition to helping the seminary. So that's part of the certainly the genesis and hopefully the objectives through the campaign. But I think, Father, you covered it well. The only thing you didn't say was Father mentioned, we were talking before, when you were in the seminary, Father, you were telling me a story. You could hear someone shaving in the next room over, if I'm not mistaken, or using their electric razor.
Yeah.
And that was just a few years ago, correct me if I'm wrong?
A few years ago.
Yeah.
That, like 45. Yeah, priest that just died, Father Joe Metcher, was next to me, and it was one of those that Max was talking about where there was just a partition between those two. It was like built out of fiberboard. But you could hear his electric shaver every morning. It didn't matter. I didn't need my alarm clock. It was a ridiculous thing in my room because anytime he got up, it was good enough for me.
Right.
I was going to be awake no matter what. But I think it's not just the little things in that seminary living space. It's that it's gotten to the point where it just isn't really a safe place anymore. You know, with these things that Max is saying that we weren't allowed to have, electrically, it's got to be a nightmare. It's got to be a nightmare. So they're replacing all that kind of stuff. So it'll be better. It'll be a better building. And even the other things that are in there, it's going to be a good thing for the diocese overall. There's something, too, about the seminary. You know, I did that retreat, sabbatical in 2009 where I went to Rome, and I lived in Rome at the seminary there for 3 months. And you interact with guys from all different dioceses. None of them had the experience of the seminary that I did, because there's something when you have your own seminary in your own diocese and all the guys go there. And Patrick said something. Who were you talking about before? It was Rocco?
Oh,
was it
Rocco, right.
Phil Rocco, he says, something about Phil Rocco. Well, I know Phil Rocco. He was fourth year when I was first year. And you get a lot of that in this diocese. We all know each other. I ran into Father Klaczynski at the cemetery, not seminary, but cemetery yesterday. I was finishing a funeral when he was finishing one. We were right near each other. He came over and said hi and everything like that. And the funeral director said, "Oh, you guys know each other?" Yeah, he's in Phil Rocco's class. He's fourth year also when I was first. The guys in Cleveland all know each other and all work together very well with each other. And you don't get that in many of the other dioceses around the country. They don't know each other that well because they didn't have that common experience. We had some of the same profs. We could tell some of the same stories. Most of us can imitate Bishop Pilla. You know, I've done it to his face, so it's like you don't have to worry about it. But there is this commonality that comes from one place where you're educated, and it's helpful. So I just would echo, you know, and Patrick said it too, just thank you for what you're doing. And we do have some things for you. You're welcome to get refreshments in that, but we do have a packet that we would like to give you, and it lists some of these things that you saw, so you can read it when you get home and be more clear about it. And there is an ask in there. You know, no fundraising activity would be any good without an ask. So there is an amount that we put in there, but it's based on your generosity. I will tell you this story, and Patrick helped with Rooted in Faith when we did that 5 years. The two of us were together for some of these bigger asks that we did. Now I'm going to forget where I was going with this. I hate that when I do a tangent when I do one of these stories, and then I forget where I was going with it. Oh, it's terrible.
While he's thinking of that, one other question that we get frequently is the comment about the priest pension fund. Father mentioned that the annual premiums per priest, which is paid by each parish, is about $10,000. With the pension fund, if it is achievable that we get that $7 million, that'll reduce the annual premiums to, we hope, $1,000 or less. So that obviously, as Father alluded to, that's a pretty big savings for parishes. As you mentioned, particularly whether it's a suburban parish or, as Father alluded to, an urban parish, that's a pretty significant savings. So it's, again, it's about $10,000 right now. The hope is it would go down to $1,000, again, with the success of this initiative.
So really,
did that give you time to think of your story?
It gave me time, but I still don't know where I was going with it. It was a funny story too, but it was.
You'll get to it.
Yeah, we did ask people for a lot of money during that time. Oh, I know where it was going. Yeah, there was, and I don't remember. I don't think you were here for this one. Maybe you were. But it was a couple in the parish who'd been very generous. They gave to the building fund. They gave well in the collection. And so we put an amount out there in front of them. And the lady really wanted to do what we were asking, but it was way beyond her means. We just didn't know that. We based it on her generosity in the past. And she started to cry. And, you know, we had to, you know, say right away, oh, no, we're not, you know. But she wanted to do it. That was the key thing in it. She really felt bad that she couldn't do what we were asking. And we weren't asking her to go beyond her means. We didn't want that at all. All we want people to do is what's within their means, but not beyond it. So don't be offended by the number in there. If it's in there and it's way over your means, it's a reflection of your generosity in the past. And just see it that way. It's because you've been so generous in the past. So don't be offended. You know, I might ask Frank for $1 million. Who knows? Frank might say, oh, sure, Father. He may not. You know, I don't know. Yeah, Pat will bring him back to reality real quick, but you know, it's that sort of thing. There is a number in there, but you have to do what you think you can do. It's deliberately based on a 3-year campaign. So divided by 3, you'll see what the number.
One other thing that, Father, we should mention is obviously the parish is off to a very good start here, almost half the dollars raised, or half the goal rather. When a parish meets and surpasses its goal, 80 cents of every dollar stays for the local need. So once you exceed your goal, 80 cents would remain here for the needs, as Father indicated.
Right. And if we go way beyond the goal, which is my hope, that will pay for part of these roof things that we've got coming down the road. So it's not like we don't need the money. We need way beyond that goal. 413,000 might seem like a lot, but the way we spend money on things like big construction projects, that's not a big number. You know, just the budget here is $2 million a year. And that doesn't include all these extra, you know, these construction projects and things like that. So I'm just grateful for the fact that you came, that you listened, and do what you can do. We appreciate it.
I think the packets are in the back with Paula.
Packets in the back. Paula has them, and there might be some other
Kathy's
people
got
that
them.
help.
Thank you. Yep. And I'll stick around for questions too if anybody has any
If you
individual
have questions, just talk at us. It's on the inside. Okay. Thank you, Max.
This thing is still on my phone.
Yeah, I'll get it.
Thanks for having me, Father. I appreciate
Well, thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. Appreciate it. You probably got better things to do on a Sunday afternoon.
I'm going to celebrate my brother's birthday now.
Oh,
so
good, good. So how long have you been in Divine Word? You said you went to Menor High, right?
Yeah. So it's a funny story. I've been at Divine Word since I joined the seminary, but I've been going there long before that.
Yeah.
We would go to St. Mary's and Menor St. Dave's, which I live right across from St. Dave's.
Oh, okay.
Father Woost at Divine Word has been